Okay, guys. So we are back. Um, and now I wanna to watch with you together um, second part of fundamental series from Jeff Nippard about how to train your body and things like that. So now let's just get started. By the way, Jeff Nippard recently lost his fiancée, his lovely girl, and that is for him very very sad tragedy. So yeah, I really sorry for Jeff Nippard, but um, as he said, he doesn't need or he wants to go through all of this privately. So because a lot of guys recently like posted, hey man, hey dude, sorry for your loss, keep up, etc. But he's very strong guy, and sometimes you just need to go through things that happened in your life. It's happening, I think, with all of us. It's just matter of time or matter of matter of time when you learn how to live with new circumstances that you with new circumstances. So in my opinion, he's a very strong guy, and I really hope that he will continue driving community for the fitness industry, sport industry, because he's trying to learn or teach us like fundamentals. And I think this is like the most important thing, because if you understand the theory, then you can do everything. That's why I'm like, as part of my preparation to the jobless future, I'm trying to remember math, physics, and things like that, because I understand that I will be like alone, or at least I don't know what will happen in the future. So, but anyway, fundamentals is the key, because if you understand the theory, then you can do everything. Maybe just with with few experiments. I think that's it. Are we live? Yeah, I think we live, but I don't see it on my restream thing. I think there is some kind of delay. I could be wrong, but I think that's what's happening. Okay, we are live. One second, I'll just need to verify that everything is okay. This stream. Okay, for minutes. Okay, guys. So we are back. Yeah. So let's get started and watch second chapter of the fundamental series from Jeff Nippard about training volume and frequency. So that's very important point, right? So
welcome to the long-awaited episode number 2 of the fundamental series. Before we get right back into things here, I've got 2 very important things that I want to announce, which I think will also help explain why this series was put on the back burner for those few months. So I'm sorry about that, but here we are. In any case, the first thing is that my new website, jeffnippard.com, is officially live. So you can go to the link in the description and go check that out. As of now, I think the best thing that you can do there is just sign up for my mailing list, which I'm going to be sending out new updates about my fundamentals book and the new beginner, intermediate, and advanced training programs that I have coming out in the next month or so. And I'm also going to be eventually firing up my blog over there again. So you'll be notified if you get on my mailing list when they go out. And that's just because I find social media and YouTube just aren't reliable to kind of get the information out there anymore at all. Which brings me to my second most important update, which is the fundamentals book itself. It's not ready just yet. And that's actually the reason why this series was so delayed in the first place. I was spending so much time writing this fundamentals book, which I want to capture everything. And then I realized that I decided that I wanted it to be a full-blown.
I always loved to move, but I felt that my mobility and flexibility was holding me back. My movements felt stuck, hard, rigid. I tried a few approaches, from passively holding a position to YouTube follow-along routine, but it didn't work. I needed something more structured, more measurable, something that would target my specific limitation. I then came across Matthew Smith's free masterclass. I could immediately tell that this was what I was looking for. First, the quality was like nothing else I've seen in the industry. It felt like watching a movie about flexibility training. I loved that why doing thing was being explained. It gave me the feeling that there was a serious
published, printed, actual book. So needless to say, it's taking quite a lot more time than I had initially anticipated for. But anyway, the best way to, again, keep up to date with that is just to get on my mailing list. And once that goes up for pre-order, I'll be sure to let you guys all know here right away. But it's looking like that's going to come probably after I release my beginners program, which I plan to launch next month alongside episode 3 of this series. And then I plan to launch a push-pull legs program for more intermediate level lifters that'll complement my science applied series. And then I'm also going to eventually launch a power building program as well, which will be based.
One thing, guys, despite it's like it was 7 years ago, the things he's talking about in this video are relevant, still relevant, and I think would be relevant forever, because that's fundamentals. So I think you may watch or attend such links, just to get more knowledge from him, subscribe to his channel. So that's not promotion, I'm not getting any money, but at least from the point of view of getting new knowledge, I think it worth it, right? So you can subscribe and get knowledge for free, at least now, at least until internet is free. So yeah,
based off of my current training and how that's all going. So anyways, without further ado, guys, I hope you guys all enjoy episode number 2 of the Fundamental series. All right, what is going on, everyone? I want to welcome you all to episode number 2 of the Fundamental series. Since it's been a little while since episode number 1, I figured it'd be a good idea to first do a quick review of everything that we talked about in the first episode to do with training. If you guys maybe just watched the first one, or you feel like you don't need that primer, I'll put a timestamp up right here where you can skip to where I dig into the new stuff. But I think that it is important to have a fundamental grasp of all of these rungs of the ladder before we start getting into the more complicated stuff up here. So very quickly, here on the bottom rung, as sort of the most fundamental thing, we have sustainability. And the reason I rank this so highly, or I guess so low on the ladder, is because this is something that we want to be doing across really a lifetime. It's a little bit cliche, but
yeah. So this is, guys, very important thing, because this is not a race, right? This is a marathon, and if you are doing any physical things like regular, if you are not official sportsman, I mean, you are competing in competitions like strongman, whatever. But for us, for guys who are not competing in sport events, I think the most important is just to enjoy, and that's basically what is written here: enjoyment. So that's why the sustainability is like the most important thing, because we are not in a race, we are in marathon, and wins the guy or wins the person who reaches the finish, right? And our finish or end of marathon for everyone could be different, but in my opinion, in my opinion, the most important thing is to run with dignity, to run with something that makes you humans.
I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that we want to think of this sort of fitness journey as more of a marathon than a sprint. In order for that to be successful, it has to be a sustainable approach, so one that you can stick to over the long term. And in order for an approach to be sustainable, it has to be safe and it has to be enjoyable. And those sort of form the uprights, or the two main legs of the rest of the ladder. And I think it's important to highlight here the principles of what is optimal and what is practical. So what is perhaps most optimal on paper isn't always what is most practical actually in the field. And this is an important thing to keep in mind. Just because something is theoretically more optimal doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be what will work best for you. So you have to be looking for what is actually going to be practical and allow you to follow through and to execute over the long term. So if we go up one rung from sustainability, we have effort. This basically means that no matter how optimal and how...
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get
scientifically grounded the rest of your program is. If you're not applying appropriate effort, then you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. And this isn't clearly defined in the scientific literature, but it's probably something around leaving no more than, say, 3 or 4 reps in the tank for most of your work. Up next, we've got POP, which stands for progressive.
Yeah, so what he's saying is that we should work hard enough, because for example, we can do 20 push-ups. What is the reason for us to do 10 push-ups? No reason, because this way we can't improve. We should do close to the maximum, but not but don't like try to increase or go over the maximum our possibilities, because we can hurt us, and then no way to enjoy such trainings in the future, because that's like something in your mind. When you get hurt during your exercises, it's kind of cognitive memory here, can push you out of training for the next few weeks, months, because you could be simply afraid of it. You don't need to push you need to enjoy, but by enjoyment, I think, you need to feel something in your muscles. You need to feel blood in your muscles. You need to feel heat in your muscles.
Progressive overload and prioritization. So progressive overload basically just refers to adding something over time. So usually that comes in the form of adding more weight to the bar or to the machine that you're using, or adding reps. And those are both ways to progressively overload. And if I were to say one of these factors is the most important thing for driving muscle hypertrophy, it probably is progressive overload. And then prioritization basically just refers to keeping the goal. So you want to prioritize the things that you're trying to improve the most, the things that are most important to you. So if you have weak arms, then you'll want to prioritize your arms in your training. If you want to improve your bench press, you'll want to prioritize that, such as by, say, putting it early in the training week when you're fresh, or putting it early in the workout when you're stronger. And then after all of that stuff, we get up here to the acute training variables, which is what we're going to cover in this video. Specifically, we're going to get into volume, so how much work should you do, how many sets and reps and so on. We're going to talk about frequency, so how frequently should you train each body part, how many times per week, and then we're also going to cover some example splits that can allow you to hit that volume and frequency in a sort of optimal way. Then in part 3, I realize it's just going to be too much information to do in just 2 episodes, so in part 3 we're going to cover intensity, so how heavy should you.
One second. I invited this Gmail account to join family of membership, so no more advertisement would be here. So 6 minutes, right?
Okay, so guys, welcome to the long-awaited episode number 2 of the Fundamentals series. Before we get right back into things here, I've got 2 very important things that I want to announce, which I think will also help explain why. Okay, so guys, welcome to the long-awaited. Okay, so guys, welcome to the long-awaited episode number 2 of the Fundamentals series. Before we get right back into things here, I've got 2 very important things that I want to announce, which I think will also help explain. Okay, so guys, welcome to the long-awaited episode number 2 of the Fundamentals series. Before we get right back into things here, I've got 2 very important things that I want to announce. So how fast, optimal way. Then in part 3, I realize it's just going to be too much information to do in just 2 episodes. So in part 3, we're going to cover intensity, so how heavy should you train. We're going to cover rest periods, exercise selection, are some exercises better than others, and then also lifting tempo. So how fast should you be lifting?
Yeah, one important thing, about goal. I have very bad experience in achieving my goals. I had a lot of goals and I never completed it, probably. I mean, besides of maybe small ones. I have nothing to dream. I have almost not so. I almost have no interest in my life. I even have no friends. So, if you achieve the goal, this is just again in your mind. It makes you more confident. It makes so even if it's small goal, then you would make or set the new bigger goal. You achieve it, you get it, and then next iteration would be you get or set more or like big dream. So that's why I'm insisting on on achieving the goals, and basically my channel is about it because I have a lot of how to say it, gaps, right? Gaps in my life, gaps in my knowledge. I would say gaps in my body, gaps in my habits, gaps in regarding how many or how much time I spent with my family, how much time I spent with my daughter. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm worried about, because I want not to be good father and good husband for my family, right? So that's like one of the things I'm talking about. Okay,
Lifting
let's
the weights.
continue.
That's it for the review. We're going to get into the first part of this, which is going to be volume, next. All right, so the first variable we're going to dive into is training volume. And in the literature, this has been cited as being the main driver of hypertrophy. I think this is a little bit of a controversial statement still. I would say, personally, if anything is probably really driving hypertrophy as the main factor, it's probably progressive overload. But as we'll see, progressive overload really does tie in as a concept with the idea of volume and training volume, and they're kind of inextricably linked in a way. So I think that that's a pretty fair statement to make. So volume is something that ranks very, very highly in terms of optimizing your growth potential. And in the literature, it's been described as having a dose-response relationship. So basically, as you increase training volume, there's a straightforward increase in muscle hypertrophy that you see as a result.
One second, hypertrophy. I forgot the meaning of this word. 1 second. Yeah. So it's like increasing a volume of something, right? And I think this is the key point. Do you or are you able to say that you have no potential to grow? I think no. The only thing is that I'm afraid about or worry about is that, you know, we shouldn't be fanatics, or we shouldn't be like, you know, zombies that are trying to increase yourself like every day. It should be natural, and it comes together with enjoyment, right? When you enjoy, you don't think about it. It's just as a natural thing. So what should we? So what is like the key point here? We should enjoy. Again, very important point.
Before we get into that, first I think it's important to define what exactly it is that volume is. And basically we're just using it to refer to the total amount of work that you do in your training. So in the literature, this is sometimes approximated as the number of sets times the number of reps times the load, which is basically just the weight that you're using. So as you can see from the formula, there are basically 3 main ways that you can increase the volume that you're doing. So you can increase the number of sets, you can increase the number of reps, and you can increase the weight. Now you'll remember from the progressive overload section, or the progressive overload rung, that when we're aiming for progressive overload, we're already trying to increase the load from workout to workout, or I should say, or increase the number of reps that you're doing. So you're trying to add a rep, add some weight, and that's how you achieve progressive overload. So assuming that you're already trying to incrementally increase these, I think the real thing that we need to look at when we're looking at volume is how many sets you're doing. This is really going to be a major determinant of what your total volume ends up being for you. So from a practical perspective, I think it makes most sense to track your number of working sets. So people...
Yeah, this important point, because, and basically the difference, he didn't say it, but I think probably for us, the way to do the things, or how to increase our progress, how to keep progressing, is to increase reps and sets. Because load, I am not sure, because this is mostly, you know, for to become stronger, to get bigger muscles. At least for now, I'm not interested in this thing. I'm interested in endurance. I'm interested in general health and health of my body, etc. And for this, probably I need to, because load, it also when you increase load, you can hurt yourself. Sets, reps, if you do it right, then probably there is no risk at all. So let's see. I'm not sure. Today I made 3 sets of my exercises. You can watch it in the previous video. So
who've written about this more than I have called this tough sets. So your number of tough sets is a pretty good proxy for your training volume. So this would basically exclude any warm-up sets that you're doing, and it would require that your sets are taken to something around, something around leaving no more than 3 or 4 reps in the tank. That would classify as a tough set, and that would count towards your training volume. So the question is, how many sets do we want to be doing per body part? There isn't one clear answer on this, and it's going to be highly individual, but I also think it also very much depends on your own training goals. If you're just someone who's, say, looking to, improve their overall shape, get stronger, build some muscle mass, but maybe not do so on a competitive level, then the amount of volume that you're probably going to want to do is going to be different than someone who, wants to do this on a highly elite competitive level. And so this brings me to this graph over here. So very quickly, I'll just introduce the main concept here. So on the x-axis, you have training volume, and then on the y-axis, you have gains. So this is gains in hypertrophy. And as you can see, initially, the steepness, or the slope of the curve here is pretty high. So you can get quite a bit of gains initially without having to do too much volume. But then there comes a point somewhere around here that the amount of gains that you get starts to really level off. So you start to get diminishing returns for doing extra volume. And then there seems to be a point where doing even more volume will actually result in a loss of gains. So this is what you'd call overtraining or overreaching. You're doing more volume than your body can recover from, and so you start to lose some of those adaptations that you had initially gained. So I'm going to switch over here. This point right here, we tend to call minimum effective dose or minimum effective volume. And it's a bit of a hairy concept. It's not easy to pin it down just to one point, because you could say, well, the minimum effective volume is technically somewhere way down here where you get some gains for a little bit of volume. But I like to think of this as the minimum amount of volume to get you the gains that you want. And more practically, I think it's you want to think about it as that point where the gains start to become diminishing. So as you start to do more volume, you don't actually see much more of an increase in hypertrophy. And I think that as a beginner, this is where most people want to be. Now I'll introduce another concept. So this point right here, where you actually begin to see it go the other direction, is what we'll call MRV, so maximum recoverable volume. So this is the amount of volume that you can, or this is the maximum amount of volume that you can do and still recover from. So it's sort of somewhere just before you start to get to that overtraining area over here. For people who are more, looking to do this on the elite level, you may want to flirt with this MRV boundary a little bit more, and it might simply just be worth it to you to do all of this extra volume to get those extra little bit of gains. For people who maybe aren't wanting to do it quite on that level, I think minimum effective dose is fine. And I think that you could make the argument that over an entire training career, perhaps just accumulating these minimum effective volume workouts over enough time will lead you to reach your sort of natural genetic limit anyway. And so this could be potentially a good approach really for anyone. However, that's something that I think experts in the field will argue about, and I think it's best to just kind of leave it up to you to decide what sort of volume makes most sense for you and your goals. To make this a little bit more tangible, we're going to put some numbers on this. So usually for most people, especially beginners, 10 sets tends to be somewhere around this point here, past which you start to see diminishing returns. And then this point here is somewhere around 20 sets, and that's sets per body part per week. Quick example, let's take the chest. If you do 10 sets per week for the chest, you'll be doing pretty well, maxing out most of your hypertrophic potential. If you were to bump that up to 20 sets per week for the chest, you would pretty much be maxing it out fully. Then once you start to get up here in maybe the 30 sets per week zone, you're definitely flirting with overtraining territory at that point, and it may actually be detrimental to your progress. Of course, that's
yeah, this is it seems pretty important because everything in the life is should be done with balance, with feeling of balance, because you can't blow up the world, right? You need to keep in mind that there are some potential issues with your limits, with your genetic volume or genetic limits that you can use for training, etc. To be honest, this genetic limits is kind of magical thing for me. At least I hope that body could do anything except things that violate physics. But in terms of body, you can train, you can heal yourself. For example, right now I have an issue with neck and my eyes. I have got some issues with eyes, but I hope that I can get it fixed as soon as possible with training and decreasing my weight, because to be honest, like I have around of 35 kilograms overweight. It doesn't sound good.
It's going to be highly individual. I know some people who are freaks and can handle a ton of volume, but generally, for the most part, most people are going to want to be somewhere in this range. So again, depending on your goals and your athletic background and your level of advancement, you're going to want to be somewhere in between 10 sets per body part per week and 20 sets per body part per week. When I say 10 sets per body part, I'm referring to these big body parts over here. So for the chest, the back, the quads, and the glutes, there will be some crossover between the quads and the glutes. So if you're doing, say, squats, for example, you'd probably want to count that as a set for both, but still, you want to be somewhere in that ballpark. And then for hams and also for the abs and the calves, you can probably get away with a little less here, but they are weak points for a lot of people, so I figured I'd be generous and give them the same 10-set requirement. And then for these smaller muscle groups, so say the triceps, biceps, rear delts, and side delts, they're going to get a lot of crossover work from these bigger muscles over here. So let's say you're doing bench press for the chest. The triceps are going to be getting a lot of indirect work, but yet still probably not quite enough to really optimize their growth just from those compound lifts alone. And the same thing goes for biceps. You will get a lot of biceps work by doing lat pull downs and rows, so your standard back movements. But still, I think that to optimize these muscle groups, you will want to do some isolation work. So over here, I would say that you don't need to do 10 sets for triceps and 10 sets for biceps on top of the 10 sets that you're doing over here. I would say an extra 4 to 8 isolation sets for these will be sufficient. And then for front delts, you actually don't need any extra work because anything that you're doing over here for the chest and the shoulders will hit the front delts just fine. And so there's no real need, I think, in any case to add things like front raises. So at the end of all this, in terms of assessing your own program, which we will get to when we talk about training frequency and training splits, the question you want to be asking yourself is, are you getting stronger?
Yeah, important point, because some exercises just touch also another group of muscles, triceps, biceps, etc., rear deltas. So yeah, this important point, just to make sure that you do right exercises to address your real needs in your body and what you want to improve in your body.
If you are getting stronger, that's a sign that you're progressing, you're building new muscle, and everything is good. There's no real need to switch things up or to add, more work. If it's working, keep going with it until it stops working. If it stops working and you notice that your strength isn't increasing, you don't seem to be adding any new muscle mass visually, that may be a sign that you need to add more work. And so you may want to start increasing the number of sets that you're doing, so you can start to get some more of these incremental, or I should say marginal gains. But still, I think that most people, for say their first year at least of training, shouldn't really need to do that too much. As long as you're just focusing on general progressive overload, you should be able to progress just fine without having to worry about increasing your sets from that sort of standard 10 sets per week for a while. But again, that's going to be very highly individual. And then also I'd like to just remind you guys that all of this is within, or said within the context of applying appropriate effort. So again, it doesn't really matter what you're doing up here if you're not applying the appropriate effort from the outset. Hopefully that makes some sense. That's pretty much everything I think you need to know as a beginner about volume and training volume and kind of where you need to be in terms of how many sets you should be doing per week. And I think
And another thing, about why is it important to increase your muscles or volume of muscles in your body? Because the muscles eat or consume calories. And for example, in my case, the only way I think to get rid of extra weight is to transform it to muscles. So it will eat the fat and things like that more faster. So I hope, by the way, that I had pre-diabetic case or situation. I mean, with sugar level, and I hope that it's not too late. I do hope really, but I'm not sure. So let's see how it's going, because I need to handle the issue with weight. I wanna look really pretty, so my wife can enjoy, the muscles on my stomach. So yeah, so she can enjoy, because she's not fat. She's good, I mean, in terms of physical state, but it's shame for me. I wanted to be pretty for her and for myself as well. So let's see.
I think that this is going to make a little bit more sense once we start to dig into training frequency, which is what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so we've established that 10 sets per week is a pretty good general ballpark figure of where we want to be in terms of training volume. So now the question is, how do we split that up and turn it into an actual training program? So I think that in the end, ultimately, what the literature boils down to on this is that 2 times a week frequencies, so that's 2 times per week per body part, tend to be better than hitting every body part only 1 time per week. And whether or not frequencies of 3 times per week or more than that or better, I think remains to be seen. And this is assuming that volume is matched. So even when we're doing the same volume, so just for example, say we're doing 10 sets per week here per body part and 10 sets per week here, we still tend to see better hypertrophy in the 2 times per week group. And there are a couple proposed mechanisms for this. The main one, I think, is that you tend to get, or you do get, an extra spike in muscle protein synthesis. So when you resistance train, you sort of sensitize the muscle to amino acid uptake, which over enough time sort of compounds into more hypertrophy. And I did a whole interview with an actual muscle protein synthesis researcher on this topic, so I'll link that up there in the cards if you'd like a little more detail on that. But that's ultimately what it boils down to. And then you can also make the practical case that if you're training each body part twice a week, it's actually a little easier to get your weekly volume in, and maybe to push a slightly higher weekly training volume. So if you're trying to cram all your chest volume, let's say, just in 1 session per week, that session will either get long to the point where it's tough to get all the sets in, or it'll give you a reduced ability to exert yourself on those later sets in the workout. So by the time you get to, let's say, your 10th set, or if you're more advanced, your 20th set of chest in a single workout, there's almost no way that you can exert yourself in the same way. So from a practical perspective, volumes tend not to be matched between these two, and it tends to be easier to use higher volumes with the 2 times per week frequency, which I think is a pretty good argument in its favor. But we're going to get to that once we get to some actual examples. So I think it's a little bit confusing for some people in my experience to hear, okay, I have to do 10 sets per week, and you try to think of how to conceptualize that in a training program. So what I've done is I've laid out 5 different examples of ways that you can set it up, and we'll just go through these using the back as an example. Okay, so we're going to use the back as an example, and we're going to try to squeeze in 10 sets per week in each one of these splits, and then kind of compare them in turn. So in split number 1, we've got the standard upper-lower split, which is actually what I recommend most for beginners, and maybe even early intermediates. And this is actually the split that I'm doing myself right now. So I think that this is a very good one, and if any of them are going to take the cake, in my eyes, it will probably be this one. And so if we just go through quickly with an example, I'm going to get rid of that circle I just drew. So with the back, you do it on both of your upper body days. So you'd hit your back here, and you'd hit your back here, along with obviously the rest of your upper body. You'd want to be doing 10 sets per week, so you'd split it up to do 5 sets here and 5 sets here. And the way I'd actually recommend doing this in practice is through a little bit of exercise variation. So of these 5 sets, you would do, let's say, 3 sets of a pull-up. So 3 sets of, say, a wide grip pull-up. And then you do 2 sets of, let's say, a dumbbell row. So you've got a vertical movement, and then you've got a horizontal movement. 3 and 2 gives you your 5 sets for that day. And then down here, you'd switch them around. So you'd do, say, 3 sets of, let's say, a barbell row. So you'd start with your horizontal pull. And then you do 2 sets of your vertical pull, and let's say we switch it up and we go with, So we switch it up and we go with a lat pull down here. Then you add all these numbers up, and you get your 10 sets per week, and it's distributed across 2 workouts. And of course, you'd do the same thing for your lower body, 10 sets for every body part, split up, something like that. And that would be your program. And part of the reason why I like this so much for beginners is that it has you in the gym 4 days per week, which I think is pretty manageable for most people. And you have plenty of rest between sessions. So you have 3 rest days to allow you to sort of recover not only the muscle groups that you're training directly in that session, but just your body more globally, I guess. Sample split number 2 is a simple full body split. So you just hit full body twice.
I like the first one. Let's see, the problem with my trainings is that I'm not gonna to attend gym. I wanted to teach myself. I wanted to teach myself how to do things at home, because that's my castle. Okay, I understand that everything is outside of my home, like life, but currently, unfortunately, I have to be like imprisoned in my apartment, because I need to do a lot of things. I need to get money to pay for the family, because I'm the only one who works in family. We have like 6 members. So
Twice per week with plenty of rest in between. And I do like this split, not quite as much as the upper-lower one though, because in order to cram 10 sets of every body part of your whole body, these workouts are going to have to be fairly long. They're at least going to have to be quite a bit longer than these workouts, these upper and lower workouts over here. But the advantage is that you only have to be in the gym twice per week, and you will get this, if not the same, very similar results between these 2 programs. And if you're someone who doesn't maybe like to go to the gym quite as frequently, this is probably the one to go with. I also like it for beginners because you do have a ton of rest in between workouts, so I wouldn't say you're too likely to run into any recovery issues here. The only potential issue is that I think the workouts will get quite a bit long. But again, you'd split it up, so you'd do, just running with the back as an example, you do 5 sets on this first full body workout, and then another 5 on your second full body workout. So a variation on this that I actually like better is number 3 here. So with this one, you're also doing full body every day you're in the gym, but you split it up into 3 workouts. So now, instead of having a 2 times per week frequency per body part, you have a 3 times per week frequency for each body part. And we don't know if that's necessarily better, but what it does allow is it allows these workouts to be a little bit shorter. So instead of doing 5 sets for every muscle group each workout, you might want to only do 4 here, and then 3 here and 3 here. And so that would still be a total of 10. So using the back as an example, you may want to do 4 sets of pull-ups, do a row here. So let's say 3 sets of a barbell row, and then here you may want to do a row again. So 3 sets of a cable row or maybe a face pull. And that would basically be how you'd set it up. The only potential downside that I would see with this one is that it may not feel like you're getting much of a workout. So for example, if you just go in and do just 3 sets of barbell row and that's your whole back workout for that day, it may not feel like you're getting much of a pump, or it may take you a while to kind of get into your groove. But with that said, I still think that this is a very good program for beginners, especially as you don't quite have the same recovery capacity, and so only having smaller volume workouts may be actually to your advantage here. And similar to here, you have tons of rest in between these workouts. Okay, so the 4th split is the classic bro split, and this is what, in my experience, most people in the gym are doing. This is what I started doing, and it's what I think most bodybuilders do even today. And you'll start basically day 1 with chest, day 2 you do back, day 3 legs, shoulders, and then arms and abs, and then you rest on the weekends. And there are a bunch of different ways you can set that up, but that's just one common way that I've seen it done. And the bro split gets a lot of hate online for being suboptimal from a muscle protein synthetic perspective and so on. But I actually don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's the best, and I don't think it's probably as good as these. However, if it is a program that allows you to get in the gym and you enjoy it and it allows you to follow through, then I see really no major problem with it. And you can certainly match volume doing this program and see very similar results to what you would see over here, provided all this other stuff that we've talked about is in place. With that said, I do see a few drawbacks with the bro split. First of all, you're only getting a 1 time per week frequency for every body part, technically speaking, and we do know that 2 times per week is marginally better from a hypertrophic perspective and from a strength perspective. However, I think that you could make the case that, well, if you're hitting chest here and then you're hitting shoulders here, since there's going to be a lot of crossover, you're technically getting a little bit of a shoulder workout probably on your chest day. And let's say on your arm day, you're doing biceps, but your biceps are also getting quite a bit of indirect work on your back day. So you could make the case that this actually is in reality, higher training frequency than it looks like on paper. And that's a point that I've made in the past, and I think it is fairly valid. But there are still a couple other problems with the bro split. The first is that I think you're just taking a little bit too long between training stimuli. Of course, this isn't as big of a deal if you buy the sort of overlapping theory, but still, I think that there is a case to be made for having more frequent blips in muscle